All right, welcome, folks. We are back after a little break over December. I'm Tai Wai, host of the Aspec podcast series. Very excited to be chatting today with Laura Curator and Speedy Sparrow. Um, Myself, non-binary Aero Aspec PhD candidate and uh, Aero spec activist of various varieties here in Ontario, Canada, where it is currently negative 19 degrees Celsius or negative 2 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's a chilly one out there, and I have absolutely zero desires to go too many places this weekend. But let's introduce the guests we got today, starting with Speedy Sparrow. Do you want to tell us a little about yourself?
Yeah, hi. I'm Sparrow. I go with he they pronouns. I'm also non-binary. I am ace, but not aromantic. And I stream. I'm a streamer, and also I call myself an artist. But obviously I'm still learning. I stream video games and art, and I try to uh encourage a more open and understanding a community of respect to like asexuality and aromanticism and all those kind of other things, especially trans in the trans community and stuff like that. I am from the UK. I'm Welsh, but I'm currently living in Scotland. And it's 7 degrees here, so a bit more warmer than it is over in Canada. But I'd argue it's still pretty cold. But I'm sure many Scots would say that it's tops off weather, which is basically a summer in Scotland. So yeah, that's me.
When it gets above, 5 degrees here, people start wearing, shorts and t-shirts for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Especially when we're leaving winter, you know?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, you can tell when it's spring.
Yeah.
Lore, I know you've been on the show before. You want to remind us a little bit about you and
Yeah. Sorry, I still have the, waking up sinus issues, so bear with me. But, my name is Lore. My pronouns are they, Faye. I also am an artist learning how to be an artist. I'm also, um I'm a writer, though I'm not technically fully published. Like, I've been published in, smaller student work stuff, but, I'm also a PhD candidate working in, philosophy, disability, and healthcare. Um, on Twitch, I stream co-working, video games, all those sorts of things. Um, what else? I don't know. I'm not really sure. I never know what to say about myself.
An all-around good bean.
Oh, thank you. I do my best. I do my best. Oh, I'm also technically officially a part of the Wear Your Stripes stream team on Twitch now, which is didn't think that starting streaming about a year ago now, I didn't think I would be joining stream teams because it was never like an initial goal of mine.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
yeah, it
Emma,
was really
good
exciting
morning.
to see you join Wear Your Stripes as well. Good
Yeah,
morning,
I
Emma.
think that you were in stream right before that announcement was made.
Yeah,
You were like
and I
hanging
was
on
like,
chat.
I had to keep my mouth silent that whole stream because I knew.
Like, yeah, don't tell them. Don't tell them. Meanwhile, you and Leatrice were like hanging out with me that day. It's like, okay.
You gotta keep secrets.
I'm not a secret keeper. It pains me to keep those kinds of secrets. So I'm glad that,
Same.
others can do it. Never tell me secrets that I'm gonna be excited to tell, because I even if I can keep the secret, my face will show it.
Oh yeah.
This is the benefit of, I guess, for some folks having VTubers and stuff, is like straight face.
Absolutely. I am not one of those, unfortunately. All right.
I can't comment.
All right, so January can be a tough time of year for myself, a combination of
Right.
the weather, which we were just chatting about, and the relatively short daylight hours here in Canada and other parts of the northern hemisphere, particularly places north of about 40 degrees north latitude, are, contribute to this. The icy sidewalks, the over 2 feet of snow I currently have outside my door. Um,
I don't even want to look outside my door. For reference, Ty and I are both within the same province of Canada and not geographically that far. But Canada is so wide
mhm.
spread that, like, being geographically close does not necessarily mean you're within a 30-minute drive. You're like
No,
hours.
yeah, exactly. Plus,
I
in
don't
my
really get
case,
snow.
yeah, I mean, I grew up on the southwest coast of British Columbia, which shares many climatic similarities to the UK. So it snows maybe once a year, if that, and it's just rain all winter long for 6 straight months with very little sunlight and lots of gray skies. So
And
I'm very
I'm
familiar.
yeah, I'm used to growing up. So where I live now is also where I grew up, but I've moved around the province quite a bit for school. And so I've dealt with both the snow that is here with in my like my hometown, and I've also dealt with less snow and about the same amount of snow but colder. And it's like snow is fine so long as the city knows how to deal with it. And most cities don't. And
Nope.
especially after the last few years where we haven't had much snow, the cities are just like, where'd all the snow come from? It's like we've been talking about it for months before it happened that it would happen. So
Hmm.
I mean, we get a light smattering of snow or a heavy wind, and suddenly everything is the end, and no
Hmm.
one can go anywhere or anything. The UK
Hmm.
no.
is not made for any kind of extreme weather conditions, not even the ones it
Yeah.
normally has.
I went there in the summer once, for a conference, and that was pretty evident. It's like, we don't normally get this hot of temperatures. I'm like, really? Okay. So you're not ready for increased summer temps at all. That was back in 2016, actually. So I would hate to know what it is now.
Hmm. I remember I was in BC in the summer of 2021 during the Western North American heat dome, and
Oh,
Vancouver, which normally has temperatures on average of about 24 Celsius in the summer, hit 43 degrees Celsius on the water. And it was absolutely miserable because we did not have air conditioning. So,
oof.
yeah, get ready for more and more of that going forward in the future.
Yeah, the UK doesn't have the best. Well, all of our buildings are meant to keep heat in, not keep
Mm-hmm.
it out.
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting even in like the normal summer conditions, you're getting into like 25 and above. That is hell on earth for anyone
Yeah.
who's in the UK.
Yeah.
Even people visiting, I've been feeling very vindicated the last summer when the heat was very high. And you had people from the US or like hot things like Europe, like Spain or any of these places, even Australia, coming in and being like, yeah, it's worse here. We don't know why. We didn't like we thought it was gonna be easy peasy. It's so much worse. Like the humidity is so high and there is nowhere for you to get away from the
Yeah.
heat in the UK unless you have a lot of money and can afford AC. But most
Yeah.
of those, they're not built into homes as standard. So you're going to need to be in a hotel or a restaurant or somewhere just to get out of the
Yeah.
heat.
No, for sure. And like even here where I live in Canada, like it gets humid. I am in what should be swamplands, basically. So we have these like there's a bog in my city. Like we have a literal bog within the city limits. Um, so it's always humid. But we have AC built into a lot of homes, or there's like air conditioning units that you can put in. Most stores have it. So it's like there are breaks. You can find a relief so long as you are fortunate enough to have access to these things. But it is more common. Um, I could not live in this humidity without a break. I would die.
Mhm.
Me neither. Absolutely not.
I'm
I
very.
did. Sorry.
No, you go.
I was talking. I was just thinking about the place I lived prior to this one. Unfortunately, did not have AC, and I was there for a year and a half and suffered through a couple of summers, and it was not pleasant relying on just a fan at all.
Yeah, I kind of have to do that where I am now, but I'm very
Mhm.
lucky that where my house is now, it doesn't get any direct sunlight. It's
Mm,
quite it's very it's very cool in the summer in this room. Like we're the only real warm place is the bedroom, but there's a lizard there, so that Viv is just constantly pouring out heat. So like it's fine. Like I don't have to worry if I need to get warm. I'll just go in there and can get the heat from there. But I'm very privileged in the fact that the sun misses me on a regular basis, which is good and bad.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Do also
Sorry,
want to
Ty, you were talking about the
recognize,
weather.
no worries. I do want to recognize that January, and we've been talking about summer, is not winter everywhere. Many places in the world, including, Australia and places um, south of the equator, are currently in summer. So, we might be facing very different kinds of concerns this time of year for folks. But I think all of us, or many of us at least, can relate to, navigating, times of isolation and the crave of things that bring us comfort. And so, this is why, we thought it would be a interesting topic to navigate for this month's podcast. So the first question focuses around activities which bring you comfort and joy this time of year. What is it that you look forward to most, and what draws you to them?
I think for me specifically, I we actually kind of touched on this before we started about my health. So I have fibromyalgia. I also have connective tissue disorder. Not sure which one, but it's there. Um, and also suffer from anxiety and depression, which all kind of elapse into a lot of problems for me. So I don't get out a lot anyway, um, because it's very difficult and very painful for me to do so. I am currently working on a lot of stuff to help alleviate those problems and get me out more. But trying to find comfort and joy in being in my own home and not feeling so isolated is a running theme that has been going through my life for many years now. Um, and so a lot of it centers around a lot of online spaces, for me specifically. So curating Discord servers or, video games and or finding communities on Blue Sky or Twitch has been such a great lifeline to me over this past year. And especially in these winter months where if I hadn't had it, I would be locking myself away and not really like engaging as much with people, because as much as it is important to socialize and to speak with people, it is also important to have those times of individuality in yourself and spending time with yourself. It's not so much isolation, but it is allowing you to be you without anyone externally affecting you in any way. So Twitch and streaming in and of itself has helped me kind of have a balance between uh being social, but also there is that barrier of I'm the one who's talking, and there's like, people are chatting in chat, but I'm not having this constant like bombardment of voices and opinions and things like that. Um and that's kind of been, I think, 50% of how I've been finding my comfort and joy, and the other 50% has been my partner. And making time to sit in the evenings before, a couple of hours before we go to bed, a warm drink, and watching something or talking about something and just decompressing and becoming a bit more human through that, because it's very easy to forget that the outside world exists in and of itself when you are so isolated. And because he goes out to work, he sees the world a lot more than I do. So I get that information from him when he tells me what's been happening at work or on his drive there and his drive back, and or he's telling me he stopped off for shopping and he's brought shopping home. And that's kind of my connection to the outside world most of the time, is through other people's like viewpoint of it. Um, and it's why I really appreciate and love learning about people, because I get to see the world through many different eyes, not only through video games but through my conversations with people, and that's what brings me comfort and joy. But just that.
I definitely feel a lot of that because as somebody so I was born half blind. So I have no vision, or no vision that matters, we'll say, because I think if I cover my right eye, I have remnants of vision in my left. Um, but functionally I have no vision in my left eye, which affects my balance and my depth perception, and that's always been the case. So I navigate the world knowing and from the experience of not having balance. But winter is a scary time, especially for me, because the ice and the things that I can't see under the snow, which is like completely, uniform usually in color, and um there's not usually a drastic change in shadows and lighting and everything else that will cue me to realize that there is elevation changes or, something there. So all of these things compound to make me not want to go outside. I also don't have any fond memories of outdoor activities in the snow. I have mostly bad memories. Skating and skiing being some things that I've never really gotten the hang of. Um, so I love being at home with people that I care about. So I live with my spouse and our two cats, who are 12 years old this year. So they love just being with us and cuddling and not doing a whole lot. So winter is a really good excuse to do that and to like kind of be inside, be cozy with like blankets or warm beverages, which I'm more of an iced coffee person all year round, but I will enjoy warm beverages in the winter, whereas I will not enjoy them in the summer. Um, but we usually like stay inside and play video games, or like you were saying, my spouse does not sit well for movies or shows. The ADHD makes them go, I need to be doing something that is not just watching.
That is a vibe.
Um, but we'll sit downstairs. They've been picking Mario Odyssey back up. I think it's Odyssey. So we've been sitting downstairs and the cats will like sit on our laps and stuff and just cuddle. And I feel so much calmer because there's more excuses to slow down in the winter. There's more excuses to have that kind of stillness, right? Like I've always seen winter as this kind of moment where the world is resting because like spring, summer, fall, like it's go go go, right? Like it's all holidays and activities and holidays that are not, national or whatever. Um and then there's the marathon of feasting that happens in the fall and in the early stages of the winter, and it's like there's too much. So I take the few months of the beginning of the year to kind of just like try to breathe. And so I like doing those things, but I definitely get a little bit isolated is not entirely the right word because I do have my spouse and I do have like the outlet, like you were saying about Twitch. And I have friends who, like, most of my friends do not live in the same city as me, so winter is actually a really good time for us to catch up because they don't have anywhere to be either. um, so playing games online has been a really good way of connecting with folks, but I do find that not being able to leave the house as easily or as often as I might want makes it difficult to like keep my mental health in check because I do struggle with depression. I have for a long time. And I've finally reached like a balance point in my life where if I do the things that I need to do to maintain my mental health, and taking breaks is one of them. So I'm really grateful for the time the winter provides for that. Then I'm relatively stable and happy and able to keep going. But I know this past week I was experiencing a lot of this like I'm not really sure, like, it's kind of like a deep-seated, like, dread and anxiety because I'm not able to go out. I'm not able to do the things that I want to do necessarily. And then I start getting into my own head about it. But so I took a lot of yesterday just to kind of, recenter myself, do things that I enjoy, do things at a slower pace. And I think that's ultimately what I like about winter is that it kind of provides me that space to do so. Nobody wants to go out anymore. So I don't have to be like, okay, well, I guess I have plans every day of this week and I'm just burnt out. I don't want to be that social. So indoor activities definitely are my comfort. And also just reminding myself that, you know, I'm allowed to take that space. And I think having a forced slowdown every so often, especially in winter, kind of reminds me that I need that space. So
I can certainly relate with many of the experiences that both of you have shared. I've struggled a lot with, mental health issues, depression in particular, since moving out here and starting my doctoral degree 9 years ago now. And so finding these online communities, especially, when I first started really navigating Twitch during, the COVID lockdowns in 2020 and 2021, really gave me an outlet to find community that I had not accessed before. And, it was a time when I first started to better understand my own queer identity in particular. And, having these spaces on Twitch, Discord groups was so, so, so important. And so, I've finally, I think, found this really nice balance between in person and online activities that, really keeps me going throughout the year. And I can definitely rely more on the online stuff during the winter, because the reason that I wear these purple clip-ons is that ice got me in 2018, and I slipped on ice and suffered a concussion and took a year off of school as a result and developed really strong screen sensitivity. It's slowly, improved over time, but I still, if I look at a computer screen without these glasses for any lengthy period of time, I'll get dizzy, I'll need to rest. And so, you know, ice is not my friend, let's put it that way. So I don't want to navigate the almost perpetually snow and ice covered sidewalks in the winter around here. So yeah, I do rely a lot more on indoor activities in the winter time. And so having these online communities is really important. But I also very much agree and can relate to what Laura was talking about, in that in the summertime, I almost feel like I'm too busy sometimes. It can be like almost every night of the week, I've got something going on, and it's just go, 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 especially through in June and July. And if I'm not careful, that can lead to burnout. So, having that time to recharge, especially as somebody that I consider myself to be an ambivert, where I do enjoy in person social activity, but too much just drains me. I need that time to, recharge, and having this, time inside certainly contributes to that.
Yeah, I can definitely know the my too many plans or not enough plan. Either can be pretty draining, because if you have too many plans, you're spreading yourself too thin. But if you have no plans, you kind of feel like listless, and you're not really, you feel like you're kind of wasting your time. And over the years, um, I've kind of learned that to pick and choose when I can go and when I can't go, which is very difficult at the best of times to know in your body when is a good time and when it's not a great time. Um, but I've also noticed that maybe it's a neurodivergency in me, undiagnosed but peer reviewed, uh, that I struggle with a change of schedule. So if I'm consistently going out so many times a week or on certain days, during better weather, not in the winter time. Fall is probably my favorite time of year to go out. But if I'm doing that consistently for that season and it gets into the winter time, you don't want to go out, you don't want to do anything, it's too cold, you got to put limited layers on, there's a lot of effort, it's a lot of time and energy simply to go to the store. um, and then I notice that there's a lot of anxiety and depression and anticipation about, oh, now I've got to start up again. Once, the couple of weeks in January are over and things are starting to pick back up again, and fighting through that kind of initial anxiety of getting back into being, I guess being a person is a little bit too extreme, but
Oh,
getting
no.
outside again.
No, no, being a person is a very apt descriptor in my
Yeah, but
case.
like I have it with streaming as well, and any kind of activity where I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, I've taken a week off because I had a holiday, like for Christmas. And I felt so anxious, and I didn't want to start again because the schedule had stopped. I got a new schedule. I was doing something else now. My brain was fighting against me for that, but I was like, no. Sometimes you've got to fight yourself in order to get those things. I'm wobbling. My chair's next to my desk. I'm wobbling over the place. To get that kind of, uh, get yourself the ball rolling again. And that takes a lot of time and effort
It
to
does.
to get that back.
Mhm.
Um, but once you do, you feel great. But
Yeah,
it's that anticipation anxiety which really gets me.
it's also for me, like, the schedule thing is I love the peer reviewed, um, note, because it's very true for me as well. Um, but like I have strong suspicions as to being ADHD, but the autism especially, that part of my brain is like, I really, really need you to set a schedule. And the rest of my life is like, maybe. And
Yeah.
so streaming was my way, like having a regular stream time last year. Obviously it changed and it was never consistent, but the attempt at having a schedule really helped me, and my desire with it was to have something that I could do every morning, to get me out of bed, to get me going, also to like, you know, the anticipation of being expected was to encourage me both to have some kind of schedule, which is really important for my mental health. It's also really important just for me to exist. Um, but also so that I could do the things that I love without the guilt of being like, well, I should be doing dissertation work or I should be doing chores. It's like at least the streaming was like, well, this is my reward for having a schedule. I can do my own thing. And now I'm kind of doing a little bit of co-working. So it's like a mix of both. I don't know. The attempt at a schedule is always really important because like without that, I have no idea what's happening at any given time. Which is why I have a digital calendar and a planner and a lot of to-do lists.
Yeah. I started off with very rigid. I stream at this time on this day and I will stick to it. And since coming back from Christmas break, I've gone, well, what if I only say what days I'm streaming and not what time? Because I found that if I stuck to whenever I wanted to stream at the time, it's helped me like get things done during the day.
Mhm.
And if I end up it being busy and I don't stream, that's okay. All I've done is saying these are the days I would like to stream this week.
Mhm.
Other than like, any of the collaborations or things like that, those have set times. But I feel like putting less pressure, but still some, really, really helped me not feel so like forced into doing anything that I didn't want to do. There's less of an obligation for me to start at a set time, and then maybe some other tasks will fall through that I plan to do that day because of that set time. But yeah, that's it. It's finding that balance is very difficult. In streaming, let alone in just the rest and aspects of life. So it's very nice to be able to take those skills that I'm learning from my whole year now of streaming and VTubing, and applying those to other areas of my life. And it's very odd, and if anybody who knows me from streaming to actually be able to see my face. I usually, it's probably pointed out, I usually stream as a little house sparrow with a big floppy hat. That is how I stream, which I prefer because then I don't have to make myself look presentable every every time I stream. Um, but I feel like that has also allowed me to be a bit more expressive in in my not just my gender expression, but also in my sexuality and my identity that way. Um, it's very I I have multiple models, but the bird is very much to me symbolizing my asexuality in that way. In that it is a bird, it is an animal, it is a thing that you don't. Some would argue you don't, sexualize. It is what it is. It's a friend, and that is how I want to like portray myself.
Mhm.
And so having that space to be like, these are the parts of me that I want public. These are the identities that I want as my like what I'm known for. Of course, like being 18 plus means that sometimes those things, things get a little less PG than people would expect, but I think that also allows me to explore those parts of me without the fear of, oh god, what if I'm lying? What if I'm misleading myself? And that has helped me come to terms with like what asexuality is to me specifically, which is a wild thing for me to like uh experience personally. Like, oh, how did you figure out your identity? Oh, I was a bird on the internet, and that's how it kind of happened. Like it's been I've been this way for a good few years, but this past year has really put into
I
perspective.
relate. Sorry,
What?
I relate.
Sorry. Talking chat. My spouse is listening, so it's like real time reactions. Talking chat.
But yeah, it's an interesting like year I have led that has helped me understand like about my health, about my view on things, and also like my identities in various forms. But yeah, that I don't know, went a bit off the rails there for a second, but
No,
yeah.
it's really interesting. Also, Tai and I sometimes have had conversations where they're in like I've interviewed them and they've interviewed me before, and I've definitely gone off on tangents that were not within the questions. So, but I that's really interesting. I think we started streaming around the same time, um, which I think is just wild to me because it's like most folks that I know now in the streaming communities are like 2+ years into streaming, some of them more so, and it's like I feel like a little baby streamer. And then there's a couple people that I know that are like, no, I just started streaming. So, but it's I don't think it's really that strange because like I think people often explore sexuality and gender in comfort zones, right? So usually, or I shouldn't say usually, because I don't think there really is a usual way that people do these things, but I've definitely heard people talking about like their OCs or their tabletop RPG characters, or in your case, a VTuber, it's not uncommon to express parts of yourself that you don't normally think about or you don't normally realize are there, and then you start going like, there's something here, so as somebody who is genderqueer, trans, non-binary kind of leaning um in identity, it's like playing a character in a tabletop RPG that was trans, not in the way that I am, but was trans, and kind of revealed herself to me as trans, I think is probably more apt because it was just role playing and then realizing, oh wait, there's something here, kind of thing. Made me kind of start thinking about gender in that way. But my asexuality came first. So my realization that I was ace came ahead of my interrogating gender, which is also not uncommon. I know like my spouse is very similar in terms of like figuring sexuality came first and then gender loomed in the distance. Um I'm reading Tiny's messages in chat. Yeah. You're allowed to talk to Tiny. This is your podcast.
You can interrupt us whenever you want.
Yeah. But no, it's interesting that it's in spaces where you can play with identity and play with how you're perceived and how you're putting yourself out there and that sort of thing, where you are able to figure out things about yourself. And so there is something to be said about leaving comfort zones, but there is also something to be said about creating comfort zones. And I've definitely like embraced certain aspects of myself just from being parts of communities in very like not uncomfortable ways. So like in the summer of 2024, I joined a queer choir locally. And before that, I was like agoraphobic. I did not want to leave the house. I was so scared to be perceived. And then since joining, I have now had 3 solos in various concerts. The most recent one being where I like almost started bawling right before giving my solo because it was a very emotional, like meaningful piece to me. Because it's basically about the support that the artist has for the trans community despite himself not being trans, and his response to the anti-trans hate in the States especially. So you can botch a solo and they will still applaud you. So you know what? There's so much to be said about finding spaces that make you feel comfortable to try, right? And
For
I
sure.
would not have been able to do that if one, the choir was not queer, because there's something to be said about like a very tight-knit community in terms of experiences. And like there's a wide array of queer folks and different experiences in that choir. There's people of color, there's people who are just barely adults, and there's people who are in their 80s. And there's such a mix and a blend of different perspectives and lived experiences. But fundamentally, we are all connected as part of the queer community. And that allowed me to go, okay, so there's people who have been in my position before here. I can kind of see where I want to go with this. And there's such an experience of encouragement and just like love, like unconditional like support and love from these folks that allowed me to start being more openly trans, more openly like involved in my community. I started volunteering for a queer organization after that. Like, so I really do think finding places where you are able to engage with aspects of yourself in a very open, playful, and curious manner is really important. And so if VTubers find that in their little creatures and their little characters, there is no harm in that. I don't think there's anything weird or abnormal. I think it's just another way of creating a comfortable space or finding a comfortable space in which to explore those kinds of parts of your identity. And I would have preferred that with my sexuality because my sexuality, I was kind of like forced to confront, I guess, because I was at the end of a very like toxic, not great relationship. And I was like, oh no, I'm ace. And then it should not have been an oh no, you know? It should have been like an oh, this makes a lot more sense. But the person I was with at the time would not accept that kind of part of my identity and did not. So it's one of those things where it's like I would have rathered that I had had the space that I do now for my gender to figure it out, because you're not going to see your like who you are in such a negative light immediately if you have that space and that comfort to be like curious about it, playful with it, like experimental, and you know, able to explore in a way that is like at a pace that you're comfortable with. So I really like hearing different people's stories about what made them realize and what they did to kind of become comfortable with it and open with it, because it's so personal, but it's always so interesting to me.
Oh, for sure. For me, it's been a long few years before, and I'd say that that streaming has made me more comfortable in my understanding of what it means for me to be asexual specifically. But there, obviously, in order for me to have that knowledge, I have had years and years and years of going, there's something wrong with me, or, uh, overcompensating, shall we say, in terms of putting myself out there in relationships, or thinking, okay, sex is how This is how you flirt with someone. This is how you show someone you like them. And then finding that the longer I was in the relationship with them, the less I wanted to engage because I was getting more comfortable with them and in them knowing who I was as a person. But obviously, there's an expectation that was already set when we started dating. And then you go, well, was there something wrong with me? And I'm like, no, it's not that. And trying to unwrap that and coming to the conclusion, like in the last like year or so, being like, no, this is a lot of trauma based, like, uh and maybe it is also some neurodivergence of learning, okay, society dictates that this is how I'm supposed to engage in
Mm-hmm.
these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then having such a lovely, wonderful, understanding partner now, where he's like, no, you don't have to worry. That's a nice bonus, but it's not what I'm here for. And that has been so good in finding comfort and joy, because especially in winter times, you get a lot of, a lot of emphasis on, ooh, cuddling up in the winter. It's all cold. We've got nowhere to be. And I'm like, I just want to sit and enjoy company. That's like the last thing on my mind. Um,
Or
so
even just being able to cuddle, sorry, like cuddle
yeah,
without the expectation, right? Like without
yes.
the like, oh, this is gonna go somewhere. No, it doesn't have to.
I mean, like, do I want to kiss and cuddle my partner? Yes. Have I had so much like trouble with like dating people where that has been an expectation as soon as you engage in any kind of physical contact? Because that's the only way that they also know that physical contact means, which is another topic entirely on how, because I've mostly dated men, so that then goes on a whole other tangent about how men and boys are socialized into showing emotional intimacy. That is a whole other, yeah, exactly, a whole other topic, um of just but I'm very lucky that my partner and I have a very open and like intimate understanding, intimate in the way that is, we know we can say what we need to say. There is no, I can't say that to my partner. There is no judgment. There is no like stopping. Well, I can't say this because it might upset them or anything like that. This is a problem. This is something I've noticed. Let's talk about it. Let's see where we can come to an agreement. And most of the time, it's not like we disagree on anything. It's just that we need clarity. And I think clarity is a big impact on my comfort and joy, because I need clarity in order for me to do my thing, because I need to know what's going on over there. And then once I know what's going on over there, I don't need to worry about it. And wintertime, it really does, because you're in very close proximity to people a lot during the winter time, especially when there's more social expectation during, December, going to see family that you maybe might not see a lot during the year. And there's like an expectation of showing up to events and having some kind of improvement or some kind of news or all this kind of stuff. And so I really appreciate my partner and my partner's family for not being that way, for not having any expectations about me, in terms of like what they expect me to have done with, my life, in terms of like, do you have a job? Are you trying to improve yourself in any way? When are you getting married? Or all that? Where's the kids? I've never had any of those conversations.
I am very thankful for you to have
Yeah, I
never
mean,
had those
yeah.
conversations.
I say that with my partner's family. With
Mhm.
my family, it's a different story.
Yeah.
But my family, most of my family's down in England and Wales, so I don't get to see them as often as I used to, which is also another difficult time, especially in winter, if you're not near family and you're close to family, not having that like connection, because there is a big emphasis on family time and celebration and togetherness, and we don't have this in the UK, but with Thanksgiving, in and all that kind of stuff, where you're thankful for family, you're thankful for friends, or and some people don't have that, and so coming back to online spaces, having those online spaces during those socially expected celebrations, or having a streamer who you can go to and watch during these people who stream on Christmas Day, absolutely amaze, and it's great because you're putting it, and New Year as well, and stuff where there's a lot of emphasis on why aren't you with people to celebrate. I have a big respect for people who dedicate their time, even when they could go off and celebrate with people, they've chosen to be an upstanding member of their community, and giving something to those who don't. And I also find great joy from being that member of the community who sits up and goes, "Hey, here's a space you can all gather and feel comfortable in and of yourself, with no judgment, and no, like, there's no worry of something coming in and disturbing that peace, and knowing that if something does try to disturb that peace, that it's going to be dealt with quickly." Yeah.
Absolutely. And we've, you know, this brings us to kind of we've been talking about the next question here, and you brought up a lot of really great points with the amatonormative and allonormative expectations set by, societal norms on relationships, the idea that everybody must desire to be in a coupled romantic monogamous relationship, and that you are somehow lesser if you don't want to engage in that, if you aren't looking for that. And this idea that where's your plus one is present everywhere you go. And every time I go back to visit my family, it's, have you found somebody yet? It's like, no, I have not, and I'm not going to. And stop asking me, please, because it's not going to change.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it gets really frustrating that society just can't get over the fact that not everybody's looking for that. So I'm so glad you brought up, allonormativity, compulsory sexuality, and a manonormativity, without necessarily, naming those, but absolutely talking about these really important issues that are so frustrating for us aspecs to constantly be dealing with.
Yeah, and
And
sorry, Tai.
I was just going to say, we are about to get hit with an ad wall.
Uh-oh.
So what I might do is just pause us here, go on like a
Yeah.
4-minute break, and then come back to, kind of exploring this in a little bit more detail, when we come back from the ad break. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
All right, so let's swap it over to the break screen, and we'll be back in 4 or 5 minutes. See you on the other side. All right, welcome back, folks. Thanks for sticking around through the ad break. So we were chatting about amatonormativity, allonormativity, compulsory sexuality, and the challenges that this creates for aspec folks when it comes to the expectations of what relationships look like for us. And
Yeah.
so I'm, we've talked about this to some degree already, but I'm interested in kind of further exploring what brings you joy in relationships and or the communities that you're involved in. And I know we've talked about this to some degree already, but I'd like to explore this a little bit further. And I leave this broad because I want to include relationships to mean anything: platonic, romantic, queer platonic, or even just, the communities that you find yourself in.
Yeah, I was thinking of this question for a few days now, and I suspect that she's not in chat because I think I forgot to tell her, and she's on Blue Sky. I forget who's on and not on Blue Sky, so I forget to tell some of my real world, I don't know, like that, in real life friends, if you want to go like that, about the shit that I'm doing. But one of my best friends who I met in undergrad, I remember after leaving my abusive ex, I went over to our mutual friend's house with her, like she picked me up, whatever. And we watched a movie. I don't even remember what the movie was because I was not paying attention. I was stuck in my head, but she held my hand the whole time because she knew that I was going through things. And there is this closeness between friends that I think is undervalued. And there is a love that I have for my friends that is no different really than the love I have for my romantic partner. It's just the level of commitment, like time commitment and spatial commitment is a bit different. And I was thinking about that moment because it was like that brought me so much comfort. Just having that small physical touch without any expectation, without any like she was there for me. She was there just to provide comfort so I could be myself and open about my feelings in that space. And that was just a reminder that there was somebody there. And I think that those moments of comfort with friends have meant so much to me because in relationships there is that expectation like we were talking about. There is that weird I've also dated mostly men. So there's often this expectation of relationships, especially because of allonormativity, and I always get the romantic one wrong.
Amatonormativity.
Amato. There we go. There we go. I feel like if I saw the word written out, I could maybe pronounce it, but so I'm fiddling with a paintbrush. If somebody's like, "What is in your hands?" It's a paintbrush. But because of those expectations, it's it's harder to justify being open with your friends, and it's harder to ask for the things you need from friendships and from non-romantic relationships, I think, because people just get into their heads that's not appropriate, or that's not these are just things that belong in relationships, romantic ones. And I don't think that's true. And I think treating your romantic relationships as significantly different than your friendships is a surefire way to feel like your world is gone when breakups happen and when like relationships don't always work. They could not fail, but sometimes they end, right? So it's so important, I think, to cherish those friendships and to find joy in all kinds of relationships, not just romantic ones, especially for folks who are aromantic. It's you can have queer platonic relationships. You can have deep friendships and connections that way. You can have, as I was saying before, the connections with my community are what got me into streaming too. I would not be here talking openly about my experiences if I didn't have the confidence that was generated from being in my community and working with other folks. Emotional closeness should not be reserved for romantic relationships. Yeah. It's one person cannot be a world is kind of my understanding of romance. Like, it's too much to put on other people to be like, you are everything to me, and I cannot form closeness with other people. So I think that we have to have those connections, right? Like, we're very social creatures. Humans don't do well alone in any amount. Like, it's fine if you need time apart from social beings, like other social beings, to just relax and be yourself. That's one thing. But absolute isolation just destroys us. And so I think, like, finding comfort in friendships, finding comfort in community, finding comfort in romantic relationships if that's what you want, but having all of those options on the table is important, because not everybody's always going to have the time or the space to hold for you to be emotionally vulnerable or to connect with on that time, because we all need breaks. But also just having those options means that you can find comfort in the ways that are needed most in those moments, right? Um and yeah, I was just thinking about, like, I love closeness between me and my friends. I love the closeness between me and my spouse. I'm a very physical person in terms of, like, how I show my appreciation for people. But because of that expected sexuality in romantic relationships, and even, like, weirdly in friendships, like, it's like, oh, if you're, like, physically close with your friend who is, like, in my case, it would have been, like, clearly a man and you're clearly a whatever. Like, I'm not a woman, but, like, people read me as that. It's like, "Oh, you're flirting, you're doing this, you're doing that." It's like, "No. I am showing my care, and I am finding comfort in that kind of closeness." But there's that automatic assumption, so then I've withdrawn, right? Like, I haven't, like, shown that affection. So having a friend show me that affection without expectation, without, like, anything behind it, mattered so much to me, because it's like, this is how I get comfort from being close to other people, is having that small, like, no expectations kind of touch. That fills me with, like, a sense of comfort. But I do think all these expectations make that complicated to navigate. And so I've actually, I don't know if deprived myself of comfort is the right way of putting it, but I have not been as open as I would have liked to with friends in the past, because of those expectations, because of the fear of, like, them misreading it. Um, just looking at the question.
I was just going to say that, and I think this, idea that emotional closeness should only be reserved for romantic relationships is a very colonial Western North American concept that doesn't
Yeah.
exist in other places. In many places, friends will kiss, hold hands, and that's just the norm. But here, you're looked upon as socially deviant or otherwise strange if you do that, and you're breaking, social norms, and how dare you do that? But
Yeah.
it's not the case everywhere. So it seems to be a very colonialist perspective that
It
causes
is, for
this.
sure.
For sure. I
And, like, yeah, so sorry, I don't know, so that's just what I mean. It's just like, I love that kind of closeness, and I don't think it should be reserved for your romantic partner. It's just like, even if you're not a touchy-feely person like I am, in terms of, like, physical touch, even just being able to be open about your emotions and to say, "Hey, do you have space for me just to explode verbally about how I'm feeling," is really important. But, like, there's a lot of there's a lack of that, I think, in terms of, like, what we see in media. Sorry, just go
Nah,
ahead.
you're good. You're fine. You're totally fine. So I came in my understanding of what emotional intimacy between my friends and then my partners were when I learned what polyamory was. When I met polyamorous friends who were like, "Hey, why do I need to hold all of my love for this one specific person for the rest of my life, when I have a lot more, I have love for the same amount of love for this other person, or in a different way for this person. Why does it invalidate the feeling and love and affection and whatever I have for this, for my partner now? It doesn't. And so me exploring that side of relationships had really brought it out that, oh, that love is not this like this pie in the sky, like the north star of romantic relationships. It's not something that you're not shooting for the moon, or like trying to, that's the one thing that you have to get for this one very specific person for the rest of your life, and if you don't get it, you're a failure. And it's like, that doesn't feel right to me. And so learning and then getting affection from friends, and this is a very big thing in like queer spaces, less so in cishet spaces, because it's a lot, traditional norms are enforced a hell of a lot more in cishet spaces. But in queer spaces where I was making friends and I was becoming more myself, we'd say I love you to each other. We'd give each other, kisses on like the forehead or the cheek if we were okay with that, or hugs, holding hands, walking down the street, being emotionally vulnerable with each other. And me coming to understand what that meant also as a neurodivergent person, not being able to differentiate emotions very well. So my love for my friend is love. That also encompasses the love that I have for my partner. They have different jobs, which sounds a little clinical, but that's the way I look at it. It's like my partner, this is his job and my job together.
Yeah.
And then my friend's job and my job, in that understanding, it's like, for me, it's an exchange, which people, I know a lot of people like to view friendships and relationships as exchanges, but for me, it's more comforting, because my friendship with someone is, we have an exchange of understanding and familiarity and common ground, and once that dries up, we no longer have an exchange. But as long as we have those, then we have a deal. We have a commitment to each other to be that, which sounds
I'm
really
laughing.
weird.
No, it's not, because I'm laughing because so my favorite movie, I'm not gonna go into it too much, is Terry Pratchett's The Hogfather. Like, it's a movie
Yes.
adaptation. That is my favorite movie. And there's a scene where Death, masquerading as Santa Claus, for those who don't know, has a child on his knee, and he's like, "And what would you like for Hogswatch?" Blah blah blah. And at the end, he's like, basically, the child's like, "Thank you, whatever, and I'm going to be good." Blah blah blah. And he's like, "Then we have a contract, and I wrote that into my vows, and my spouse did something similar." Because that's what it is, right? It's an agreement. It's a commitment that has been agreed upon, and there are boundaries, there are understandings, there is, transactions aside, like there is a give and take. There is work, there is, negotiating, there is, sometimes, like, part of my responsibility to my spouse is to be here to listen, right? And to be a mindful person in this household. Because just like anybody else you live with, like, you should be mindful of that person's needs and that person's space. And so it makes sense to me, but maybe it's the autism. I don't know, but it's like, that's what it is, right? Like, it is a give and take. There are times where that person might not have much to give me, so I give them a bit more. But I know that they'll do the same in response later on. And if they can't, and then neither of us can give and take anymore, that's the end of the contract.
I maybe it is a very neurodivergent look on things, but that brings me comfort in my friendships. Like,
Yeah.
I go to my friends, I give them affection, and they will provide me with affection in the ways that we've agreed. But I find myself a lot more in the past. I'm still unpacking what love means to me. At, I'm in my 30s now, and I've been struggling with it, since teens. But what is love to you specifically is going to inform how you navigate your relationships and friendships. And if you don't know what that is, you may want to start the work. Because
Mhm.
once you and this is not to say that going down the whole, if you can't love you need to love yourself before anybody can love you. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that what does love mean to you informs what you will get out of your friendships, what your
Mhm.
friendships will get out of you, what your potential relationships will get out of you, like what are your family and you get out of your family. Like, what does your familial love mean? What does your platonic love mean? Are they one and the same to you? Because once you know that in a kind of broad sense, you now have the tools to make your own joy,
Mhm.
because you can go, this is what I need out of a friendship, and this is what I can give. Now let's find people who can reciprocate that. And you know what you are worth and what you demand. And I say demand, you rightfully demand what you deserve in terms of how you want to be treated,
Mhm.
which is a thing that I'm still learning. And so I want to tell my friends that I love them. I want my friends to tell me that they love me. I want to, you know, hug and cuddle and be physically affectionate with my friends as much as I want to be physically affectionate with my partner. It's just that my partner has more responsibilities in terms of keeping me alive than my friends do.
But
I'm not expecting my
Mhm.
friends to financially assist me in paying for rent, but I will expect my partner to financially help me pay bills, because we're living together. Like there is that kind of there is that kind of agreement. And it also it depends on whether you're living alone or whether you are living with a partner or whether you're living in a communal space. You've moved in with friends, because living with someone is a lot more different kind of love than having to just meet up with friends. You
Mhm.
don't, and I didn't really understand this until I started living with people, is that you don't really know your friends until you've lived with them. And I
Yeah,
and
there's
I
some friends I
understand
could
that.
not live with.
Yeah, and I have made that mistake. I will not make it again, of living with certain people and then coming out the side being like, I shouldn't have done that. We were great friends before, and now I don't know. Um, but that also in impacts how you show affection, because you are now seeing a whole other side of a person that you didn't before, and whether that impacts your comfort. Where I moved in with my partner, I think about a year ago now. We've been together for, it's been a year, maybe 2 years now, and time is fake. But we have
Time
been
makes no
together.
sense, it's fine.
Yeah, time makes no sense. I think we've been together for about 3 years. It'd be 3 years at the end of this month. And so learning what love meant for me and him also impacted, because there was no pressure for any kind of physical intimacy as much as I wanted that physical intimacy. Gave me a lot more comfort, and I have been more, I just say, just across the board, so much better in every area of my life for that small thing of no physical intimacy unless you want it.
Mhm. It's such a
And
huge difference, isn't it?
yeah, the amount of pressure that is taken off every single interaction that you have with your partner
Mhm.
because you could say even a hand, like, I'm not saying this is for anybody, but even a hand touch could possibly set off the, oh, there's an expectation because I've touched you. I've
Yeah.
then there's no relationship there. Once you've taken away any, unless physical touch is not your thing and you are very happy in a relationship, but that is not happening, that's a whole other thing. But
Mhm.
I do need some touch. So not having any kind of, if I do this, there's going to be an expectation and I'm going to say no, and then there's going to be a whole thing and I'm in my head and so I don't do it, and now I don't get affection, and then my partner doesn't get affection, and then we don't talk about it because it's scary, and I'm like, oh no, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. So
Yeah. As I know Bunny was saying that, like, um, that, I don't remember Bunny's pronouns, I'm so
They,
sorry.
them.
Okay, thank you. They also have a high value of communication, honesty, and, the kind of, like, transactional, like, give and take thing that we were talking about. Um, Communication is so important. Like, I need to know what is expected of me. And if what is expected of me is now within my comfort zone in terms of, like, every touch could lead into something, that's a hostile environment. Like,
for sure.
you say all pronouns. Thank you. But, like, I think that is a very neurodivergent thing, though, too, is just, like, needing to know what is expected of us so we can act accordingly.
Yeah, and I
But you
mean,
shouldn't have to be so mindful. So, like, I think that understanding what is expected of you from other people, but also what we expect of other people, I think that open communication is something that I really value, like, having learned about from polyamorous friends and relationships that I've seen and have been, like, able to, like, learn about. Yeah, straight cut communication, you're gonna anxiety spiral. Yeah.
yeah, I
So
have that.
I don't know. And you shouldn't have to, and, like, that's fine if people go like, "Oh, are you interested?" And then you go, "No," and then it's like, that's the end of the conversation, whatever. But a hand touch should not be an automatic, like, "Oh, this is gonna go
No,
somewhere," you know?
but I
Also
think that
learning that.
also,
Yeah.
I was gonna say that also, like, then involves something about um perhaps men or male presenting people and their lack of safe physical intimacy, where sex is the only physical intimacy they are allowed it or afforded in society. So
Mhm.
when you have a partner who is perhaps so touch starved that any amount of that can start something, but when you don't have that, I guess, emotional maturity or emotional clarity in yourself, and an open communication channel where both of you feel comfortable in saying, hey, is this a thing that we can do? And also not being upset when there is a rejection.
Mhm.
The worry of rejection, I feel like, is the biggest, like, problem and obstacle in that situation. Is I'm not worried about the expectation as much as I'm worried about the reaction to a rejection.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I can be asked, "Hey, do you want to?" And I'm like, "No." And then if they go, "Okay, that's that's it over and done with." Do I feel extremely guilty because of all the other times in past relationships where I said no and I've been made to feel guilty? Yes. But then my partner comes
Yeah.
along and says, "It's fine. I was just seeing I was feeling the vibe. And the vibe is no, and no is good." And
No,
that
there's
is,
nothing wrong with no.
yeah, no is a full sentence. And so that has also allowed me to be more comfortable in expressing myself. And that is not to say that asexual people cannot engage in sexual activity. They can. I know plenty of
Facts.
asexual people who have great times. You just don't have to. The whole point is not the attraction. It doesn't mean your body chemicals don't work full stop. And I think there's a lot to be said about that that taboo area of intimacy while also identifying as asexual, but you also engage in sexual activity, and people think they're not mutually exclusive.
Or I
And
mean,
so
like Tai had a whole conversation on here about kink one time, which is not inherently sexual, but people kind of like group sexuality
yeah.
and kink together too.
Bunny was
And
part
I
of
know
that, I
lots
think.
of sorry?
I think Bunny was part of that conversation along with Caber, if I remember correctly.
I know Caber was.
Yeah, and Bunny was as well.
Oh,
It was a
yeah,
great chat.
I was only able to be there, like listening in for a very brief amount of time, but it seemed so interesting, and I need to go back and watch a lot of these VODs, but
Same.
I know it's on your YouTube channel, which you should plug in the chat.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I know. So I'm definitely more like demisexual personally, but because of that, I don't experience like I don't experience sexual attraction, which is why I'm ace, right? Like I don't
Mm.
have that kind of like it's more fueled by emotions and my emotional bond with people. But I do have aesthetic attraction. I do appreciate people based on their aesthetics. Um and as like an artist, uh people talking so this is an interesting thing. This is probably should have been my first clue in high school. I was part of a very like professionally leaning arts program in my high school. So it like if you did all 3 years, two of which were half days, so like third and fourth period or first and second period. Um, if you did all 3 years, you would have by the end of it a portfolio with which to apply to art school and also potentially get past some of the foundations courses in like a university level art program. Um, and so I did a year of that because I wasn't going to art school, but I wanted to like kind of it was basically art therapy for me because there was a lot going on at that time in my life. But like it was interesting because we did life drawing. And we are a bunch of minors. So we are being supervised, obviously. But there was a nude model in the center of the room, and you were drawing this nude model. I had no issues with it because it's just a body. Beautiful women. Okay, let me put it this way. They were beautiful, but to me, they were beautiful art subjects that I could draw. Some other people were like, this is weird. I don't know how to look at this. Where do I look? Like, what do you mean, where do you look? You look everywhere because we have to draw a whole body, and we got 10 seconds, or we got 15 seconds to try and get a motion, like, gesture drawing done, or 30 minutes to do a full, like, drawing. What do you mean where to look? We have to look at all of it. But nobody understood the way I did, because it's like, when you're that young, and you're that new in your, like, art, like, skill development, and you're not asexual, it is harder for, I think, your brain to go, these are just objects to draw, right? Like, these people are just objects to draw and not just nude people. So it's weird being an artist and being able to kind of just make that mental switch without any kind of problems, but it's also very helpful. That's how you look at people. Like, how can I break down the face structure? Yeah. I mean, I like people watching, but I like people watching because I like to know in my mind, like, how would a scene look? How would this scene look? How do I describe this in my writing? How do I draw it, in a comic? It has nothing to do with sexuality.
I like people watching because I'm nosy. I want to know what
Facts.
I want to know what's going on over there. I love
Yay.
sitting in. My favorite thing is sitting in like a coffee shop when I'm out with my partner, or walking past someone and they're being far too loud, and they're saying you just catch like a snippet of conversation, and then they walk past and they turn to my partner and I'm like, "Did you know? Did you know that?" Like just carrying on this conversation I have no context to, just assuming and making up stories about what possibly they could mean. And it's so interesting to have that kind of you have the lack of context, and even in art, you have that, you only have as much context as the artist gives you, or
Mhm.
as much context as you are just sitting drawing a person who's nude. That's the context, but
Yeah.
you don't get like, how's a person feeling? Are they cold? Are they warm? Are they
Yeah.
are they experiencing any complex emotions? No, they're just sitting there and you're just drawing them.
You're
So
just
I
drawing them.
find, yeah, I find context is important, and I feel like a lot of people struggle with context
Yeah.
and putting
Yeah.
putting their emotions into context and putting their situation into context and not compartmentalizing like relationships, but misattributing like feelings.
Mhm.
Like, love is for romance only. And it's like, no, it's not. You're misattributing what you think love is based on what society has told you love is, based on all the media has shown you what love is, because they label romantic love as love, but they don't label friendship as love. They label it friendship.
Not
Yeah.
all love is romance. That is my favorite tagline at Pride, and I love bringing the arrow
Mhm.
flag and just being the loud, obnoxious arrow, reminding folks of that.
And I do want to say that like part of what brings me joy in communities is that non-romantic love. And again, going back to I feel weird if I share this with folks later, but because I keep talking about her, she's like literally my favorite person. Um the 76-year-old lesbian woman in my choir, I absolutely love. And she's like told me like I love you. And it's like I love you. You're so amazing. But it's like having people in your community who express that love to you in whatever way they're able to, and like being able to, like, she drives me home sometimes, like she's part of my book club, like having people like that means so much. And I would
Mhm.
not be where I am today without people like that, because it was my friendships that got me out of hard times. I love my spouse. My spouse is over there playing Hades too and listening in. I love my spouse, and we've been together for almost 7 years. Disembodied arm. And they've helped me through a lot of times. I would not be still in school without their financial and emotional support. But they were not in my life during some of my hardest years, like dealing with chronic illness, dealing with abusive relationships, dealing with, well, obviously, and dealing with my brother passing and my absolutely wild, like, time of you laughed at the wrong moment.
I'm sorry, I laughed as I heard
I know.
because obviously I wasn't there during your abusive relationship. I promise I'm not laughing about your bereavement. That is terribly horrible of me.
It's been a decade. It's I'm mostly like this is fine. Timing is very silly, but the character lore be going deep, yeah. But my master's degree was fucking awful. And entering my PhD was very stressful because I left a support network that had carried me through a decade, basically, of trauma and life changes. And it was my friends who supported me through it. It was my friends who, when I came out as ace and non-binary, threw me a fucking party and went, "Yay! We got as many rainbow treats as we could." It's like, thank you. It was my friends who were like, "I don't care what name you go by. I will try new names for you. We will play around with it. We will try new pronouns." Like, it is people like that, and it's people in my community now who got me through things. It was not romantic love. It was romantic love now because this is who I live with. But this is all love to me. Like, it's very hard for me to delineate between friendship and romantic love. But the important thing is that it was love that brought me comfort, and it was not always romantic that got me through things. And so when people say like, "Oh, I only talk to my spouse or my romantic partner about like my day or my troubles or whatever," it's like you are putting so much on one person and you are depriving yourself of so much, you know? And it is heartbreaking to be on the outside looking at these folks and going, "Oh, you could be doing so much better." And so could your spouse because like that is a lot to put on one person.
For sure.
And it is a society thing, right? Like it is people being raised with the media that they grew up with or the expectations others set on them that tells them that they can't find comfort outside of, these romantic relationships. And so I feel for them, but it's like you've got to work past go to therapy. Find comfort in yourself, find comfort in the people around you, find comfort in hobbies. Like there's so many things that you have to start, like even if it's baby steps that you have to start exploring to break out of these expectations. And it's I don't know. I just feel like there are things that you need to find on your own for sure, but there's also times that you just gotta listen to other people.
Like it's very difficult to take advice from someone who is so much further ahead than you are, but they've been in
Yeah.
the situation you are currently in, but it's so difficult to like see that light at the end of the tunnel, or that
Yes.
that the the grass over on the other side, which is much 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 greener. But sometimes you have to just, I don't like saying this, but you just have to suck it up. And I mean that in a way that is putting your fears aside and going, you have served me, you have protected me when I needed protecting. I don't need protecting you. This is, I don't need you anymore. And I'm going to take a step forward, even if that step forward is scary,
Mhm.
because it could go wrong. Yeah. But it could also go so well. And you could learn so much by just taking that step and trusting that the people around you have got your back.
One of the biggest things that brought so much more confidence and so much more joy to me was when I finally said, I am going to reject those societal norms around
Mm.
relationships. When I finally made that realization, hey, I'm Arrow. I don't want to be in a romantic relationship, nor should I be forced into a box where, love, where these kinds of expectations can only be met by this artificial container that is, the societal norms around romantic relationships. Rejecting that has been such a huge part of coming to understand my identity and become so much more comfortable with who I am.
For sure. I also went through the same thing of being socialized as female and the expectations of get married, settle down, have family. And though that maybe resonated with me for like a year or like a good couple of years before I hit puberty. But as soon as those hormones went, I was like, I don't want kids. I don't want to make a family. I don't want that traditional, like, I don't want to get pregnant. I don't want to go through any of that. Like learning about pregnancy and what it does to the body. I was like,
Horrifying. It is
no,
body
no, thank
horror.
you.
No offense to people who want children, who want to carry them. No.
Yeah, no, like
No, not
that
for
is
me.
like, if you want to have kids, you go have kids. If you can financially afford them, if that's what you want to do with your life, if your soul, what brings you comfort and joy is raising a family, go for it. I will just get pets.
Mm.
I am not, I am non-binary. I am trans. I identify as queer in terms of like sexuality and all that kind of stuff. like in that like queer, but like asexual. It's a very what is sexuality and gender? I don't know her. But
Here is a good descriptor if there's nothing like labels to me have always been I use them because they're comfortable shorthands.
yes,
So if I need to explain my experience to somebody who only has those labels and doesn't really have the understanding of that position themselves as being queer, then I go, yeah, I'm ace. I'm pan-romantic or bi-romantic. I kind of flip-flop because I like the colors of bi more. But the gender ultimately does not matter, so just technically pan makes more sense. Um what? What do you mean? Okay, hold on. So Buddy is talking about potentially like staying single because you just feel like you need to recover more. Yeah, that makes sense. And like I also did like a lot of romantic relationship hopping in my life because it's like, well, I need to be with someone in order to be physically close to them, in order to be whatever. But being more open with my friends really helped that, and it helped me become comfortable with myself enough to know what I wanted out of a romantic relationship. And something about milk lines like mammals, like you can grow an extra nipple upon those lines and make milk. You're being so dead ass. I learned this today. Oh my god.
cool. Today I learned that you can become a pig. Because they
What?
have milk lines. Like
Okay, see.
they have like I'm assuming like pigs or like cats is what I like the lines down, but
Only
it's
during pregnancy.
only during pregnancy. Good. Okay, so we can avoid this
We can avoid it.
eventuality. Just simply do not get pregnant. Your body will stay exactly as it is. And you will no extra nipples to worry about.
That's my comfort zone. Let's just stay in the I'm not gonna get pregnant because that just seems like more body horror.
And it really is. It really, really is. But like it's that also informs how I navigate my relationships because I'm not there's no ticking time bomb of oh if we get too old we can't do this
No.
anymore or we have to adopt now or we have to get good jobs so we can have more money and oh no there's a kid. I'm like no, don't need it. I can barely look after
Nope.
myself. I
Same some days.
I'm not
Yeah.
like I'm not eugenics or anything, but I'm not passing this on to my kid. Like what I've got going on is staying with me, and that's fine. Um, but like there's so many things that encompass what it means to live outside of societal expectations for relationships and friendships, and you you can still be in a cishet relationship and not have to follow those norms. You might be in more pressure to, for sure, as you wouldn't be as in as much pressure as a queer relationship. However, you can still say this is not what I want
Mhm.
and go forward with that in a way that makes you happy. But it will be essentially an uphill battle from other people because, especially people who have gone into that tradition, who have followed
Mhm.
that step, who have gone, I've got like kids and a house and a mortgage and all this kind of stuff, and or grandparents or whatever being like, well, I did it and it's great for me, and I'm like, okay, but that's not what I want.
Just because
But
it was great
Yeah.
for you doesn't mean it's great for everyone.
And my argument for that is, was it great? Because you seem miserable. Like
Yeah, right?
I've
Facts.
heard so many stories about how much people hate their kids or how they hate their spouse or all this stuff. And I'm like, why did you could have not done that. You could have changed at any there are a lot of crossroads and you just kept going straight forward to the thing that you hate. I don't That is another thing that I will never understand is that I'm with someone that I can't stand. unless you abusive relationships and all that, that is different. But I'm talking about just
It's harder to
people
navigate,
who
yeah.
just seem to just hate each other, but they stay together and have kids because they think that'll fix it, and that doesn't fix it, and it just adds a whole other human being who has to put up with whatever you've got going on. Um, I don't understand it. I will never understand it. I've lived through that as a
Yeah,
child of divorce. I have lived
yeah,
through that. And I think that also influences why I don't want kids. My experiences as being a kid who grew up in a not so great household of a relationship that wasn't working.
yeah.
Um, and
I mean, and there's also
yeah,
just yeah, and I think that's the other thing is, like, being queer and being in queer relationships is kind of allows you to do the things that any relationship can do, any romantic
mm,
or non-relationship can do, which is define the expectations, define the goals of the relationship, and define what counts as success, right? I'm playing with the paintbrush again. It's here, it's on my desk. I have to fiddle with it. Um, because I think what happens with queer and platonic relationships is that people think that an end is the ultimate failure, and it's not. It is not. If you are unhappy, if you are miserable and you're just making each other miserable, either in a friendship or a romantic relationship, you have to either fix it, right? Or end. Because that is a failed relationship. Relationships are not there to make you miserable, romantic or otherwise. Yeah, I was also a divorcee kid.
Yep,
Um,
me too.
they could have just sat down and talked with us about what's happening instead of keeping it under wraps.
Mhm.
Yes. Um, I feel like messy divorces are and messy relationships in that way, I guess, are worse on children. Get out before it gets to that point,
for
if
sure.
you can. Abusive relationships are a whole different issue, but um, it's just yeah, it's one of those things that I think being in a queer relationship, like my spouse is also non-binary, my spouse is also queer. Um, we are able to set our own expectations and to come back to the table and renegotiate them or like talk openly about what we want in the future for ourselves, for each other, for our household being us and two cats. um and that's something that any relationship can do, any friendship, platonic relationship, romantic relationship could do. And that is something that I found joy in with my friends, is that we are able to communicate to each other. We're able to push back, right? Like we're able to kind of hold each other to account, to say what we want, what we don't want. And that makes me feel like my friends actually care because they tell me how they feel. They say no. They say I can't do that right now, or I don't like that, or I actually think that's not true, and stuff like that. Like that allows me to know that they're being genuine, to know that they're not lying, to know that like they're not just pitying me and being friends with me for whatever reason. And so it allows me to feel affirmed as myself and as part of a like friend circle or whatever. Um and it's the same with my spouse. Like being able to talk about our expectations, our goals, what we want for ourselves in the future is part of what brings me comfort in the relationship. And if you can't do that in whatever relationship or community you're in, that relationship and community is failing you and you are failing it, because that's ultimately what success looks like to me, is just something that is serving all parties involved. Well, serving. Let's not just say like, oh, it's fine. No, you should be thriving in your communities. We're not always thriving, but the potential to thrive should be there. Because like we live in a world that's constantly beating us down. It's very hard to find
Mhm.
a position beyond survival, but the potential should be there. You should be able to see, if these external barriers weren't in place, that you could reach this, right? Like that you could get to this next level of happiness or whatever. But that you are at least comfortable enough to say that like this is doing what I need it too in this moment. Um,
Absolutely.
as queer individuals, we're already more inclined to question societal norms, and then yeah. I've been adamant since I was 13 that I don't want children.
Mhm.
It doesn't prevent people from going, so when are you having children? Do you want children? It's like, please don't put this on me. Yeah, it is from your parents because you didn't have that. So
Mhm.
therefore you desire it now even more than ever.
Absolutely. I think that's so true. I am looking at the time here. We are about to get hit with an ad wall in about 2 minutes. So, are you okay if we take a quick break here
Of
and
course.
then come
Yep.
back?
Yep. I know, Sparrow, you have cut off at an hour from now. I was gonna
Yeah,
say 1 p.m., but it's
we
not 1 p.m. your time.
6 p.m. I think. And I
Yes.
got
Yeah.
to cut off then because I'm waiting for a delivery order then. So
Yep.
we'll
Yeah.
take a quick break and then we'll come back and finish off kind of the last little bit. So we'll see you in 4 or 5 minutes from now. All right, welcome back, folks. Thanks for sticking around. So we've been talking a lot about, what comfort and joy looks like in activities and, in relationships, and really talking about how we, as ASPEC individuals, challenge social and societal norms around what relationships look like and how they're supposed to necessarily operate. So now I want to kind of turn to a slightly different question and, address some of the, challenges that this time of year can bring for, myself and I think many of us in chat. And this is addressing isolation, that the winter for us in the northern hemisphere can bring. How do you navigate, those feelings of burnout and isolation? And for, those of us that are, involved in communities, myself as a peer support co-facilitator, for example, of a ACE and Arrow support group, how do you hold space for others who may be struggling this time of year?
For me, I I struggle with isolation. I touched on this earlier, but struggling with isolation has been a key theme in coming to terms with my disabilities, um, and that has meant that I have gone through as many different coping strategies or lack thereof, um, as you can count. But for me specifically, it's giving myself grace. I am allowing myself to maybe wallow a little bit more than I normally would, allowing myself to sit in those negative emotions. And I've been doing this a lot more recently, because I was part of I think it was a 10-week pain management program. And they did a lot of things on like mindfulness and sitting with your emotions and sitting with your pain and stuff like that. And I've been using that as a way to help with the isolation. So I'm allowed to feel negative feelings. They aren't like bad in and of themselves. Like emotions are neutral. They are just telling you that there's something going on in your body. And it might not be the correct emotional response for the issue, but it is an emotional response. It is just an indicator, like a light in your car going off and saying, hey, there's something wrong. So sitting with those emotions, and I can have a bad day. I can have a bad 2 days. I can be in bed for 3 days and allow myself to wallow. You are allowed to have that. but it's making sure that you then don't allow that wallowing to progress any further than a few days, because then it starts to impact everything else. So, like, say you work during the week and you're having really tough time, but you can't stop, but you have the weekend to, you don't have any work, things to do. So use that weekend to just wallow. Allow those negative emotions to be felt and experienced, and give yourself the time to process. And that's what I've been doing to help with isolation, is processing those emotions and giving myself the time to just be. There's no expectation of, oh, if I'm feeling these, that means I can't do this, I can't do this. And then if I don't do this, then that means this falls behind, and then I'm a terrible person. And I'm like, no, we can deal with that once we've processed this. I'll sit in my bed. I'll put on I'll watch my YouTube, my video essays, and I will pretend that nothing else exists. Because if I don't do that, I'm only going to extend the period that of this, like, whatever problem this is, into a longer, more extensive, like, long-term problem. But yeah, that's my way of dealing with the burnout and the isolation, is to not necessarily let it happen, but basically let it happen, and just have those supports. Like, make sure I have snacks, make sure I have hot drinks. It's easier for me to do that because I have a partner who is very attentive, who can physically do those things that I can't do. So he can bring me food, he can help me get into a bath or a shower if I need it. Not, I'm very aware that not everybody has that. However, to the degree that you can, allow yourself to just be grumpy, be, like, crotchety and angry and frustrated, and just negative Nancy it up all over the place. Like, just you're allowed to feel bad about things, and you're allowed to express that you are not happy. And I think a lot of people suffer from not, this chronic toxic positivity, that you have to be happy, you have to be positive, or you at least have to be neutral all the time. And you have to be mad, get frustrated, get sad, be depressed, but not for so long that you can't come back out of it. That's what I do.
I have to echo that there's, like, you have to allow yourself space to feel things, because, like I was saying yesterday, all I did was, like, do things slowly. I did things that brought me joy, like streaming Okami, and just, if the dissertation happened, it happened. I did not expect it to happen, so I did not put that expectation on myself, because I just felt such a deep-seated, like, anxiety and dread and despair, because, like, the weather is definitely catching up with me. I have not really left the house for a walk in at least a week, because it is bitterly cold. There's too much snow. I live in a residential zone that is often last to be plowed and to be dealt with, so the sidewalks look like a no for me. Um, and so I tried to kind of fight through it on Thursday, which is where it was the worst, and that wasn't working. So yesterday I just did my best to kind of sit with it, while also doing small things like the dishes, preparing a nice lunch for myself, playing Okami, which is such a beautiful game. And if I can't fight the demons in real life, I will fight them in a video game. Like, it's doing things that bring you joy, or that at least let you sit with those feelings, I think, is how I deal with it. Because if I just sit and I don't do anything and there's nothing to distract me, I don't come out of it. I just kind of spiral. So there is like a little bit of find what's going to happen, like what's going to help you, because some folks can't just lay there, but some folks need to, right? Like if you have chronic pain, you're not going to want to get up and move around, and that's okay. Sometimes you have to rest while also feeling like shit.
Yeah.
And it's oh, you're hanging low stream. Yeah, the coding has been a lot for you. And it's very frustrating because if you're a dissertation student and there is a roadblock of some kind and nobody believes that it is there. So in my case, it's usually like a mental block, not like a physical coding is not working. They're like, oh, just work through it. Just do this, just do that, just get it done. The amount of times I've heard just get it done in my life has been too high, but especially in the last 6 years, whatever, of my dissertation. Yeah, no.
Yeah, and
But yeah, no, it's sitting with yourself and sitting with those feelings and letting yourself feel them is part of processing them, right? And anything that helps you do that in a way that is safe for you and those around you is important.
oh yeah, I am talking about like hanging in people's streams, like the way I hold space for others going through isolation and going through tough times is through streaming. I want to curate a space where I can be like, I have opened the floor to people to okay, less about opening the floor, but more like I imagine it as I'm in a like a living room situation or like a communal space. I am doing what I'm doing. I have it on the screen, and chat is people coming in and out of that communal space. So they're sitting down on a couch, they're commentating on what's happening, or they're having conversations with another person who's sat on the couch, but you're spending time in this specific space that is curated for that. Or
Mhm.
you've got people who are sat on a beanbag and they're not interacting with anybody else in the space, but you know they're there and they're doing their own little thing. And that is how I imagine my like putting on a stream to be is opening a space where you can have lurk, you can do what you need to, or you can talk about your problems to an extent, because there's also holding space and saying, hey, we're not equipped to deal with that here. And you can express yourself in a Twitch chat insofar as you aren't bringing the mood down too much, because me as I guess a leader of a community, which I don't like saying, but it's true. um you have to hold some kind of like line of, we are open to people not having a good time, but we don't want to make that worse.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
There needs to be boundaries, absolutely, and it's
Oh,
so
for sure.
important
Also,
to.
not everybody else in the space necessarily has that energy to talk other people through, even if they have the training, right? Like they don't come into a stream to do their day job. Unfortunately for dissertation people, that is just our life. It's not a day job. It doesn't leave. It's just there. But I agree, like it is very much just like, for me, I started streaming as a way to engage with my hobbies, as a way to be social while also committing to spending more time on my art. And like I could probably bring up like on a future stream like the art that I was doing in 2024 versus now, and it's like I've seen the improvement from the regular like practice. So I do think of it like my streams as similar things. Like I'm doing a thing. If you want to hang out while I'm doing the thing, you're more than welcome. The co-working is like I'm also just working. So if you want to work with me, we can set timers, we can buy you double. But like primarily that's how kind of how I approach streaming as well. It's just like this is just a space. If you want to come in, hang out while I do something, do your own thing. You can lurk, you can listen, you can talk. That's great. If you want to say like I'm having a really hard time, and give me like bare bones, not personal details, I don't really mind. And I could be like, yeah, I feel that. That's hard. Tiny comes in and gives me math, and I'm like, yep, that looks really hard.
That's a different kind of problem.
I can't deal with anything about that, but you're welcome to vent about it. I appreciate Tiny coming in and complaining because it gives me space to also go, dang, doing PhD is fucking hard.
Absolutely.
But nobody else believes you. You know, you're in the
No.
midst of grad school, and nobody who's gone through grad school understands.
No.
I think there's a lot to say. Sorry.
There's a unique challenge and just difference that, especially PhDs bring in terms of just constantly being confronted by this, what feels like a never ending, I don't know, I mean, just a never ending series of projects that for a lot of the PhD feel like will never end. And the fact
'cause it
that it
won't.
doesn't, yeah, and the fact that when you go home at night, that doesn't disappear. It's not like you can leave it at the office at the end of the day. It's being carried with you 24/7, 365.25 days of the year.
Sorry.
You really feel that 0.75 when you get it.
But yeah, it's I think providing a space for people to come in, be as they are, but not necessarily get too into it. Because like some folks who come in, I don't know them personally. Sometimes they're complete strangers, at least at first. I don't. It's not that I don't care, because I do. I care deeply about what's going on in the world, and I do care deeply about people, like everywhere. Really, like I can't see what's going on external to me and not feel something. But you do need breaks from that. And so there are moments in which, you need to sit with those feelings. And sometimes sitting with other people is very helpful. And then there are moments where you have to, you don't have to be happy when you come into my streams. I don't expect that. I don't expect you to be over talkative. I don't expect people to engage with me as they would if they were feeling their best. That's not an expectation. But I do think that there needs to be spaces where you can feel those things without sinking into them, right? Without expressing them thoroughly or like going off about them, like about the I don't people call it trauma dumping. I don't know if I really like that word, just because I think you're offloading the trauma. Sure, you're kind of dumping it on the floor, but it's not like dumping in a no dump zone, you know? I feel like that's a I kind of think of it that way, and I'm like, but people can't help having that trauma. Like
I feel
weird.
like trauma dump comes from the term of when it's one-sided and hasn't been like there has not been an agreement that you express that, and thus you're just taking it and going, hold this, and you're like, I didn't ask to hold we weren't having this conversation. I can't hold all this.
Yeah, it's like I was not prepared. I was not prepared.
And if there is an agreement where, say, someone comes into chat and says, "Hey, I'm not having a great day," and then I go, "Tell me about that." That is a sign and an agreement that whatever is ever going to be explained by that person, I am going to hold space to listen.
Yeah.
But obviously, you then have to think, okay, so if that person then comes with something pretty heavy, all you can do as a streamer is go, that sucks. I'm sorry you're going through that. I hope you can find some calm space here to not have to focus on that so much right now. And that's usually my response to a lot of things that come into my chat is, I'm sorry you're going through that. That's a really tough time. Let's have some fun. Let's chill out. You don't have any pressure to chat. You don't have any pressure to be anything other than what you are. And I can, be the silly little jester on your screen. And there's a lot to be said about streaming and allowing people who might not necessarily be chatting to maybe see something or hear an experience that they wouldn't have heard otherwise. And maybe they feel uncomfortable and they can't really express themselves the way they want to. So if you have these conversations in your chat, if you allow people to express themselves like in a way that's healthy and in a way you set boundaries, other people whom you may not know are even listening can get something from that. And that's also a reason that I really enjoy streaming, is that I don't like hold I'm not just a good vibes only streamer. That's not what I'm about.
No.
I'm about having good conversations about all topics
Mhm.
that everyone is in an agreement of, or can be in disagreement of, as long as it's not harmful. And that's my like my particular like thing is I don't have like a no politics rule. I have a no bigotry rule. That there is
Yeah.
there is a difference where I'm like we are allowed to talk about distressing topics in a way that is helpful and positive in the outcomes of those conversations. I want people to walk away from that conversation being like, I have learned something, or I feel more comfortable, or I feel more seen, or I feel more understood than they did when they first came in. And that's my like big thing about streaming, is one, to encourage people to do the thing that they want to be able to do, and be like, look, if I can do this, you can do your thing, and I believe in you. And two is that you are seen and heard in this specific space. If you're not seen and heard anywhere else, you are seen and heard here.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. And Bunny was like, maybe the term oversharing would be better. And I do agree. I think it's like a little bit of oversharing in the sense that like you want to be safe about things and you want to keep people safe as well. You don't want to like encourage people spiraling together, even if it is together. We don't want to go into the pits of despair where we can't come out. Especially if we are distant, like geographically distant from each other and there is no like physical like check-in system. I like to try to be constructive in our conversations, be safe in our conversations, like you were saying. And yeah, someone might be triggered by that as well. Yeah. And so like I usually try to be like, okay, well, let's do a trigger warning. Let's talk about this. If I remember, sometimes my brain is like off. But I talk about my own experiences with disability not infrequently, my own experiences with mental health when it comes to my dissertation. Because I know that part of the problem in terms of like disability justice, like getting to that point, is not talking about it, is this lack of representation. It's the same thing why like I really appreciate Ty's podcast that we're talking on right now, is because part of finding justice for Ace and Arrow folks is overcoming the lack of representation, is talking openly about our experiences, and not just like normalizing, because that is part of it, but also just like saying like there are so many different kinds of experiences within the Ace and Arrow spectrum, and not only that, but they exist, and there are many people who fall within very similar experiences as like myself and others. And so when I talk about those things, like with disability, I talk about my own experience with disability. I am mindful of like the privacy of my own personal information, but also the privacy of others. But I also do it from the from a social justice mindset, where it's, if I don't talk about this, someone else is going to feel like they don't have anybody else to talk to about it, or that they're alone in this experience. Like, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease at 19, and I had no fucking clue what that was. I had never heard about it. And so people telling me that I have this thing, and without giving me any information, made me feel like I was gonna die. Like, I felt like, oh my god, this is terrible. I'm terminal. But that's because the medicalization of disability and of certain experiences makes you feel like there is no way to live while being completely medicalized. And so I talk about having these experiences from the position of somebody who still does things is very much like, yes, you can too. Your life is not over because you were disabled. It's just different. And so I try to keep space for those kind of conversations open because it's just to be human is to be vulnerable and to have these experiences, right? Bunny says, for me, in my experience, we do have some talks on mental health, LGBTQ, and etc. In a more broader sense, like deep, but no specific detail. This space is an open floor, but not to the point of oversharing details. Yeah. No, that's fair. Like we all curate the kind of spaces we can, and also the ones that we potentially need for ourselves. And like more broadly, like if I'm looking at the communities that I'm in, like I volunteer with a career organization that like has an open closet and pantry for folks to come in and take what they need, leave what they don't. As well as like other events and things connect with each other. And like part of my way of helping others through, tough times is volunteering so that they can have access to the space because I have no set schedule in terms of like work. So I can go volunteer at weird hours when most folks are working so that folks who need to like come in to a pantry to get canned food and stuff can, So it's, yeah, I don't know. My whole thing is like, what energy and resources do I have? And what can I do that is going to help other people, even in small ways? And what can I do, even in small steps, to further us towards like social justice goals? So that's why I kind of talk about disability, but why I also pour like a lot of time and energy into like local organizations and like even just like helping community members with their own like little projects. Like I know somebody that I've been helping with like the organizational aspects because I do like spreadsheets. Try to get it's like a professional kitchen that folks who are just starting to get their cooking businesses up and running can use. But right now getting it going is a huge ordeal. So I've been trying to help with like getting that organized. So but ultimately like it is just about doing what you can while also doing what you can safely for you and others. So the weird balancing act.
100%. Absolutely. Boundaries are important. Keeping yourself safe and within the bounds of what you are capable to do. Because if you're not able to, if you're not looking after yourself, you're not able to be there for others. And that's the reality with a lot of these things is that the most important person in these situations needs to be you to a degree, because if you aren't able to help them and you're not taking care of you, then you're not able to be there for others. So it's really important to set those boundaries and make clear that these are the conditions that we're operating in. And kind of closing out this question, the work that I do that brings me a lot of joy is spending time having these podcasts, but also the IRL events and the spaces that I help out here locally, where I run once a month an Ace and Arrow support group for folks to come out and talk about many of these issues that we talk about on the podcast here. I set aside those times to have those sorts of discussions and be with folks. But I also recognize that I can't do that 24/7. I've got other things that I need to address, and I got to look after me as well. So I am looking at the time, realizing that we're getting very close to the cutoff. So I do want to wrap things up and just close out by saying, is there one thing that you're looking forward to most this year going forward?
For me, I think it's seeing where my journey in the streaming space and the art space is going to go. I am using streaming to, much like lore, improve my art and keeping myself honest about, doing an art at least once a week if I can, and documenting that process. So for me, it is seeing how far I can improve, and for the first time probably ever, I am very, very enthusiastic about what this year might hold for me.
Absolutely. And I'm so excited to, see where that journey takes you as well. And I know many of us are in a bunch of shared spaces, and it'll be exciting to see, how how our channels and how our communities progress, within these shared sorts of spaces, where your stripes, this podcast group, and many, many others that were a part of the Collab Hub. And any last thoughts, Laura?
Sorry, I thought you were gonna keep going.
No.
I'm feeling pretty similar about art. And I also want to get into writing. So what I'm most looking forward to, I think, is wrapping up this dissertation so that I can make time for my writing and other
Yes.
projects, because like
Yes.
writing nonfiction dissertation stuff that is very emotionally heavy and taxing, and also just mentally draining, has not left me any time to write in the last, like, seriously work on my creative writing in the last 6 years. And that is like a whole piece of me that has not been, you know, looked at, much less cared for. And I would like to get back to that. So I'm kind of looking forward to doing that, and I want to start by like making little comics of my OCs and stuff. And also probably scenes from the Hogfather, because there's a desperate lack of gifts that I can draw from. So so that's what I'm looking forward to. But I also have been doing like little daily creatures, which has been fun. That's my well, there goes the brush. My daily resolution or whatever was to draw a little silly creature. So I roll 4 characteristics from a random list of 100 features, and then I draw something based on that. And it's been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much again for joining joining me today, and for these really awesome and important discussions, around uh, community space, around comfort and joy, and really bringing a perspective that's not often looked at by society in general when it comes to relationships. And so I just want to shout you out shout you out both again. And can you let us know where we can find you on the socials?
You can find me at Spitty_Sparrow on Twitch and Speedy Sparrow on Blue Sky. I have other stuff, but I don't use those. So those are the 2 main things that I actually actively maintain at the moment. But if you put Speedy Sparrow into your search engine, I'm sure you'll find me somewhere.
Likewise, I'm lore curator everywhere here on Twitch, but also on Blue Sky, and I did make an art fight account because I was doing a Secret Santa gift for Jazz, and I had to snoop their art account or his art account in order to get the reference photos. So I might be doing that later this year. Who knows?
That is also something I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing an art fight. I'm so excited.
I've never done one. I have to put some reference photos on there.
Yeah,
But
same. It's very scary.
yeah. So find me on those spaces. I also have a Storygraph account if you're interested in seeing what I'm reading in my very slow progress. So, but yeah.
Thanks
Thank
so
you
much
for
again.
hosting, Tai.
Yeah, and thanks
Yeah.
so much everyone who came out, who lurked, who chatted, who hung out with us. Thank you so much for being here today. We are going to go on a raid.